Give those of you that's watching, that's never played this before, a look at the cars. Alright, let's get on and do some time trial. One moment. Right, where do we want to start? Let's have a look at Great Britain. It's just to show the people that's never raced before. What the game is all about. As a couple of my friends have said, is it competitive? Is it close to the real thing? Yeah, I think so. So I've put in the time trial mode, and just to give them the basics of what's involved. This is all my friends' race times or time trial times. They give you some idea. Mine is a 1:25.5. Though I haven't played this for about a month, but it gives you some idea. My fastest time round Silverstone is a 1:25.5, and the fastest time of my friends is a 1:23.5, which is 2 seconds the diff. So now I'll go to my setups. Just check it. And we'll go to track. Now, starting off, you learn the basics with a full racing line on, and people tend to drive anywhere they want to drive on the track. But it does take time and patience to know the limitations of what you're doing. Now I race medium traction, no brake assist, which took me a while to get used to. But then a lot of people would take different lines that never driven around an F1 circuit in a virtual simulator, knowing how fast you can take each corner. As we're heading up now to Maggots and Beckett's of the back end of Silverstone. Ready for the DRS, pop the rear wing, in the top, hitting speeds of close to 200 mile an hour and just over. But of course everyone, when they first start off, they would race with a full racing line. just to give them some idea. But the racing line isn't always the fastest way round the track. Into turn 1, turn 2 you should be able to take flat. Up to turn 3, down 5. Clip the curb on the inside, open the wing. But I'm part of PS4, as you can see. You take too much curb, drift out too wide, and it invalidates your lap time. But I've been part of PS4 now for 19 seasons. And currently I was in the F1 League. But yeah, each and everyone would learn differently. Obviously the wheel is the fastest way to go. I play pad, but some tracks the pad is better than the wheel. Flat through turn 1, too much curb, invalidated. Is it competitive? Yeah. Very competitive now with esports involved. Does it give you something to aim for? And you're in what I call like a true simulator, proper seat, good wheel in front of you, good pedals, usually Fanatec, but a good starting point would be a Logitech G29. That's where normally everyone starts, which will give you a close feel. So I'll finish this lap off and I'll take you to another track. And that's Silverstone. And without this little line on in the corners, you would use the braking boards as your gauge. So some people would brake at the 150, some would brake at the 100, some brake past the 50-meter board. Start accelerating as you're just clipping past the centre of the apex of the corner. Drift out wide onto the curbs to try and take a sharper line in. Back up the Maggots and Becketts. Flat through the first part. Six-tenths down in the third sector. Haven't played for about a month. So you really need to be on this all the time to stay competitive. It's not a game that you can just pick up and put down and still be as fast as you once were. So we'll end that, we'll go to a different track. Go official time. Let's go to Belgium. Belgium's a technical track. Rouge. you're flat out in the base of a rouge, then you climb the hill through a series of small turns. You want to try to stay away from the curbs. Touching the curbs will just usually put you into either the left wall or the right wall. So like we did the first time, straight to setups, down to Belgium, dry. As with all my setups, I have all my dry setups, and then they start with the wets. And I'll take you on a lap now of Belgium. This is on the bottom and the back end of the circuit, down towards the old bus stop chicane. Whereas the track used to go left, it now goes right. A lot of people suffer with a little bit of back end here. DRS open. And here we are, they'll run down to a rouge. Into 8th. Lovely, up over the top. Hit the DRS zone now. Down the camel. Flat out down this straight. Hard on the brakes. I like to go back down 5 and then flicking up on mid corner. Missed the apex, drifted out wide. Not the brightest idea. Now this corner down here is a fast sweeping left-hander. You want to stay away from the curbs on the inside. They have a tendency to drag the back end of the car around. And now we're going to start the drop down now for the back end and the longest straight of the circuit. A lovely track in the dry to drive. It's only a short race round Belgium, but a nightmare in the wet. Hard on the brakes. Out of the last corner, hard on the power. Up through the gears, a second down off my fastest time. But this is the hardest part of the circuit. Staying away from the curves on the right and on the left as you come up the hill. Some curves are kind to you. Some curves will help you. A lot of curves will just put you in the wall or spin you round, and it's your race over. Because in that corner you can go from first to last in the blink of an eye. Through current years like 2015, 2016, 2017, there was times you could touch that curb on the inside and get away with it. But in this game you don't seem to be able to do that anymore. And what all leagues require is driver etiquette. They like you to be clean and to give space around other drivers. Yes, you're going to get the odd banging of wheels, the odd bump here and there. But the days of people brake checking you or trying to unsettle the car in front of you are near but over, because with the stewards that's involved now, a dim view is taken of it. And if you have a teammate and he's faster than you but he's behind you, you're going to let him go. You're not going to try and hold him up because you want what's best for the team that you're racing for. but the game demands your full concentration. Okay, time trial, you don't get any damage on the car. It's perfect weather. And it's just you and the track, and that's what happens when you touch the inside curb. But back on the power again. Now in a race, you'd want it to be in such a way, take it easy when turning the car, because you wouldn't want to overheat the rear tyres. Because you overheat the rear tyres and the car just comes straight round on you. So what we'll do now is we'll finish this lap and we'll go to a track and I'll put the rain on. Just to give you some idea. Though I've never been to a Formula 1 Grand Prix, I would say these tracks are very, very close, if not inch perfect to the real thing. Or wouldn't be far away. So now we go down to car and track selection. We'll select a different car. Let's go Red Bull. We'll go to Austria in the wet. There we are. Confirm settings. I find it takes me about 10 to 15 laps to get back into the feeling and getting close to my fastest time, sometimes beating it, shaving maybe a tenth or half a tenth, anywhere up to a second off the fastest time. I was one of these type of people that used to sweat the game, and I would do 350 400 laps of practice a week. So now we're at Austria, we go down to the wet setups. They all differ. Austria. And there's the brake setups, as you can see. Tyres are always at minimum. And we'll do a lap now in the rain so you can see what it's like. The comparison. And with the rain you tend to brake a lot earlier and feather the throttle coming out of slower corners. Up the hill into turn 1. Clip the inside curb. Back end trying to step round on you. Up the hill now, into turn 3, which is this long sweeping bend. Into turn 4. Now in the wet you don't have DRS in the wet, only in the dry you have DRS. But this is just to give you some idea, an indication of what it's like to go down in the wet. And you can hear the difference between the cars as well. Back up now to the final 2 corners. Pits are on the right, drift out wide. Heading towards the line now, and that's a lap of Austria, the Red Bull Ring. Obviously my setups are just safe setups. They've always served me well. I've given race setups to other drivers who've gone on to win races with the setup, but never been so lucky myself, only finishing as high as second. Never winning a race in PSF1, but haven't done so in other leagues. When you race online against other racers, it tends to be a crash fest where it's every man for himself. And of course you get challenges to do. You've got to complete challenges, and there's a race pass to get every 8 to 10 weeks. So I'll do one more lap at Austria, and I'll put us in board on another car then in the dry at the same track, so you can see then the comparative difference between the speeds. Like my best is a 1:14 in the wet. In the dry you can shave 11 seconds off that, or close to 11 seconds. And we'll jump into a Ferrari. And even though there's no line apart from the corners, you learn where the line is. A lot of drivers don't drive with any line on. They don't drive with any traction control, ABS brakes. They have nothing on. So now I'll go back down to car and track selection. We'll keep it at Austria. We'll go to the Ferrari. We'll go to dry. Confirm the settings. But you can see it's a highly competitive game just by looking at the time trial times. In the Ferrari now, as you can see here now, there's 208,423 players. Obviously, like the 56 seconds, I would say, are from the early days. 8th of the 8th is when the game hadn't been out long, and you could cut corners, cut across certain parts of the track. I would say when you start getting into, say, I don't know if any of these are legit, the 102s. I would say they are, judging by the date, the 28th of the 1st and the 19th of the 1st. I would say they're legit. My fastest time round here in the dry is a 103.8. As you can see, the fastest time of my friends is a 102.3. 1.5 seconds comparative difference. So now we go to our setups again. Go down to Austria dry. Just have a check. Yeah. And the setups are the most important part of the car. Wrong setup, the front end's not going to go where you want it to go. You get too much oversteer, too much understeer. The back end wants to step out every corner you go into. On the acceleration, it wants to come round. On the braking, it wants to step out. And it's just finding that perfect balance in the car. Into the second to last corner. Across the line we go, and up the hill. A lot of people short shift, so they'll go from second to fourth, fourth to sixth. Over the line, DRS wing open. Now it's dry. I think it's a very enjoyable game, and it's you get satisfaction at it, finishing in the top 10 against a good field of drivers, getting your first ever podium, better feeling, and then your first ever win. Whether it's just online racing against the average Joe blogs, it's a brilliant feeling. But as you can see, I'm down on my time already, quarter of a second, heading up the hill now. Car is planted. Little lift on the throttle there. Almost 9/10 down. And it doesn't take long with a bit of practice that you start to see your times tumbling, but you don't realise how many laps you've done. Because whereas I used to do like some days 50, 60 laps of practice a day, on F1 2019 I done 21,000 miles around F1 circuits. I actually done more miles on an F1 simulator than I did in real life, which is pretty sad if you think about it. But it does show your commitment. As you can see now, we're going into lap 4. And of course you see by not clipping the inside curb, it costs you dearly, almost half a second down by turn 4. And it takes you a while then to get back in the rhythm, to find your way again. Takes a couple of laps to get that out of your system. But what a lot of people do, like when there's a league race on, they'll do so many laps of practice. They'll try and get the lap invalidations out of the way. They'll do a practice race. They'll try and get any little crashes out of the way, so hopefully it puts them in good stead then for the race. A lot of people have a problem with track limits. So if you cut a corner minor, you'll get a warning. Cut it major, you get an instant 3-second time penalty. And at the end, I've streamed some races where the race has come down to time penalties and it's been won and lost. What PSF1 has taught me is that races are won and lost in the first corner. To give everyone around you plenty of space and not to do anything rash into turn 1. The race might be 36 laps long, but in that one corner it will ruin the entire race. You put the practice in and you might do 200 laps practice, and in that one corner you've ruined 200 laps practice and practically wasted your time doing it. But you can see the speed you can carry through the corners. So we'll cross the line now, we'll go to a different track and then I'll end the stream then. Let's have a look here. Belgium, Italy's a fast circuit, Singapore is technical, Russia's nice. Japan is a lovely track. USA, not overly keen on USA or Mexico. Brazil happens to be one of my favourite tracks. Nice technical track, Brazil. A lot of nice free flowing corners where the track undulates. 1 minute you're going down the hill, the next minute you're going up it. Beautiful track to race at. Into the settings, see what my time is. Fastest time is a 107.4. 1.5 seconds comparative difference between the fastest driver of my friends. But to give you some idea how close it is. Like Ryan 55X is on a 106.145, and then obviously Toxic Tomato and is on a 116.3. But then if you look at the times, then it's like a 16386, a 512, a 675, a 711, a 719, an 826, an 858, an 889, a 984, and that between second and 12th is still in the 1 minute sixes. That's how close it is. It comes down to thousandths of a second. It is very enjoyable once you get into it. Now take Dilmos for instance. Dilmos has been there, has been in PSF1 as long as I have, 19 seasons. He's always had a good turn of speed, but what I noticed last season from any other season is that Dylan has been concentrating on his race starts, and he's able to get off the line, hook the car up perfectly and make up anywhere between 2 and 5 places before turn 1. And that's the driver I see progressing. Another driver I've seen progressing is Konski. Only a youngster, whereas he used to run mid-pack, and he used to have a problem with time penalties from race to race, sometimes crashing out, wasn't overly keen in the wet. I've noticed he started progressing, running at the front of the pack, challenging for the lead, getting race wins. And it's nice to see someone that you race with for 10 seasons, they're in the top tier, which is at the F1 league, and they're winning races against some of the fastest drivers in the leagues. So we'll get our setup now. Brazil. Almost forgot what track we were at. We are Brazil dry. See, the computer will give you basic setups, but with the basic setup the wings will be matched the same, the transmission will be high, the suspension geometry will be halfway, the suspension will be all halfway, they will be 6 all the way down, the brakes then you will have for argument's sake 80 and then 60, the tyres will have pressures 3/4 of the way up. Some people use them just to set time trial times, hoping that someone's going to come along, take that and think, oh, I can use this as a race setup, and boy, you're in for a big shock, and a major shock, because the time trial setups are never anything to go by. Some people use their race setups for time trials. Some people like to put what I call a Mickey Mouse setup on, set a fast time, and then sometimes you might get a message saying, is your setup any good for a race? And they they might message you back saying no, it's just basically time trial, or yeah, give it a go. But more often than not, I found time trial times, they're Mickey Mouse. You come to turn 1 or a fast sweeping bend, and from say 130R Japan, the back end steps round, or the car drifts out too wide, and before you know it, you're running through the gravel. So now we're in the Mercedes, and we'll go round Brazil. Dropping down the hill now. Hard on the brakes to go up the hill now. Important that you stay to the left when you're on a flying lap, because you want as much time as possible and the closest route, or the quickest route to the line. But I would think, because I haven't raced for a month, it would take me close to that to get back to where I want to be. The longer you're off the game, the harder it becomes to get back into it. But I've met a lot of good people through F1 racing. And fast people. A lot of them stream their... Now a lot of people... Now the car has reset the track. Now in leagues they don't like that. They don't like you resetting the track. It goes against the rules. So we'll try again. Hard on the brakes. Into turn 1, down turn 2, centre S. Drifted out too wide, invalidated. But it does demand your entire concentration. But a lot of my friends, they stream their own races, LRB for instance. Enosia Joey, Lego Minecraft, Jakey Boy, Conrad, Not Penny's Boat, Karting Legend. They all stream their races, they all record their races, they all look back on them, thinking if I'd have done this, if I'd have gone there, I could have taken the tyres maybe another lap. But to become good at this, you've got to practice and you've got to attack every corner. I like to ease off there because coming over the brow of that hill, the back end of the car goes light and it wants to step out on you. Up the 5th, back 3 gears, hard on the power, try and stay to the left as much as possible, let the car travel out to the right, hard on the brakes, back up the hill. And we're just coming up now to the DRS zone where we'll open the back wing. Flat out across the line. And away we go for another lap. It's nice when you can nail turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, turn 4 and get what I call the perfect lap. Or what you think is a perfect lap. And getting on the power early. Using every inch of the track. I like to feather through this corner. And just feather the throttle. Hold the inside of the track, let the car drift out, hard on the brakes. But obviously when you first start off racing, you're going to be taking lines that not normal people would take. It's hard to show you because after learning how to drive, I suppose what people would do is they would be braking here very slow in the turn one. They would be following the line, trying to stay on the line. And it's only when they come round that they give it the full power going down the straight, and then they brake way before where they should do, say here, and then they drift out wide, and then they think they'll drive over here, and then they'll start here. But you slowly learn the corners and you find out how enjoyable it is to actually go down the track, not invalidating. It's one of my pet hates in league racing is getting a warning, because normally when you get one warning it's followed by another and then a 3-second time penalty. And when you're not as fast as maybe say the top 9 or the top 10 and you're hoping just to pick up 1 point against drivers that are so much faster than you, and you've got a 3-second time penalty, and you finish the race 11th, which I have done numerous times, and to find out by 0.3 of a second you've lost 1 point. My best season in PSF1 was last season, scoring 37 points for the entire season, and the previous season was good as well, as I'd always seem to get to PSF1 into F1, and I might stay there for a whole season, and at the end of that season back down to F2. And one season, very unfortunate, back down to F3. But it's highly enjoyable. Okay, I'm nowhere near my fastest time. It would take me a while of concentration to get anywhere near my fastest time. I'm 2/10 down now. Up the hill we go. And the apex is important. You need to be clipping, what I call clipping the apex. Yes, there's certain parts of the track you can take a little bit more corner than others. But F1 tracks, they're not very forgiving. Drift out too wide, invalidated. Now a lot of people would say, how's that an invalidation? You've got to keep it within the white lines. That's the track limits. Certain parts of the track you can put 2 wheels over the white line. More often than not, the game will not let you get away with it. As you can see, we've done 8 laps already at Brazil. And by the time you tot up the other laps, you can say I'm close to maybe 20 laps or 30 laps of practice at numerous tracks. Some tracks you don't need to use top gear because the corners are just fast approaching. but I've only ever been in, I've been in numerous leagues since I've been racing since 2015, but I've never been in any more than 2 in any 1 week, because I always like to concentrate on the one that I've always been with, which such as PSF1. I've always given that league and my time and my in practice. Short shifting all the way up to 6th. I like to drop some backs 2, sometimes 3. And in a race it's important as well to look after your tyres. Tyres are the most important thing of the race, is making them last. How far can you take them? Keeping an eye on the temps, the wear. Around Brazil I know I can take a set of medium tyres 20 laps. I know I can take a set of soft 16. Well, the race distance is 36 laps. Some people like Di Miles will do a 2-stop. Me, it's a 1-stop every day of the week in the dry. Softs to mediums inside the top 10. Mediums to softs outside the top 10. But if you're ever thinking about joining a league, drop Not Penny's Boat a message, PSF1, send me a message direct, and providing you're clean, tidy, we'll get you league racing. Normally you would start off in F3 and you would progress out of F3 into F2, and then all about finishing, say for argument's sake, top 4 at the end of the season. That will put you into F1 the following season, and you will remain into F1 then for the entire season, and then the following season then, if you fall into the bottom 3, what we call the relegation zone, or the bottom 4, you're relegated then back to F2 with it all to do again. But I think I'm currently in my 3rd season of F1, which is unheard of for me. I'm normally up there 1 season, down the next. And then I'm down out of F1 then for maybe 3 or 4 seasons. But currently at the moment I'm doing commentary. I'm doing the best I can for PSF1. I'm trying to give something back to the PSF1 League for the enjoyment that they've given me in 19 seasons. Because they don't get paid for what they do after the race. The stewards are working on race footage, unfair incidents, unfair time penalties, and then they do a stewards report, and it's all published on Discord or on the PlayStation. It's all published, and then you get to see what everyone's penalties was, what everyone else got up to in different leagues or different tiers. But they don't get paid for their hours of work that they put in behind the scenes. They have their own website as well. So there is a lot of thought that goes into it. I was given the option if I wanted to race a season in F1, but we didn't have a commentator, and it was on my bucket list to commentate the F1 league. So now I commentate PSF1 F1 at 6:45 on Sunday evenings. It's enjoyable. It takes you a couple of races to get into it, but then once you loosen up and the nerves have gone, you're able to talk about drivers that you used to drive with and race against, and give a little bit of input to your viewers. We'll cross the line now and I'll end the stream. As the back end steps out. And there we are. That's Brazil for you. Well, Jose Carlos Pache, famously named after a Brazilian F1 driver of the early 50s. Many great drivers came from Brazil. Ayrton Senna, or the late great Ayrton Senna, who is Lewis Hamilton's mentor. We've got Felipe Massa. There's so many. There's the Fittipaldis, father and son. Felipe Nasr. Enrique Benoldi, Tarso Marquez. But there's been 32 over the years, Brazilian F1 drivers. Back up the hill. And that's it. We'll end the session and then I'll stop the broadcast. Thank you for anyone that tuned in. Thank you for any comments, any likes, and I hope to see you again soon.